So I was thinking of doing a oil change on this car today, but that might have to wait because I don't have enough time to do the current repair that has now made itself apparent and necessary, plus an oil change. So let me turn on the flash. Okay. So this breather hose from this head down there, wherever it connects, was connected to here, and I've been noticing a small oil seepage in this area and kind of downward past here and down, as you can see over there, right into the nice valley where that injector is. That's very bad. Not, I guess, breather hose, one might think not as bad to have a leak, but the oil that comes up through the crankcase ventilation doesn't make it back into the intake. It goes and drips down here, and it could ruin your coil pack in a way, but I think more concerning is ruin your injector, crud it up. And we know that the BMW S63 injectors, or N63 variant, are problematic at best. These are the newer injectors. They have been replaced previously, which is great. But I need to somehow figure out a way to clean all that out. And now I need to replace this hose, which I do have a spare, but I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around how I'm gonna reach down there. I don't know if I should look from the bottom of the car. I've actually never pulled off the full oil or skid plate pan off this car, but we might have to do that today in order to replace that hose, because you can't just patch that up. I'm sure the car is going to make a beautiful whistling sound when I start it right now, because that whole PCV system is open. You ready to hear it? Oh yeah. And it even causes the car to run rough, of course. Let's get it in the garage quick. Firstly, let's get this airbox off. There's just two clamps on the intake boots, and that way we are going to be able to get ourselves closer into the, there we are. Still see our nice, we are trying to replace this hose that goes down there. As you can see, the PCV system on these cars and anything that sits on top of the engine, when all that heat is just rising and cooking up against the nicely insulated hood, a lot of people recommend taking off that engine cover for some additional release of heat upward. Then you hear the direct injectors a lot louder in the car, but it's an option. So let me show you the new piece that I have for that. Firstly, here's that piece that completely crumbled. And so this produces a lot of whistling sounds under your hood. If you own a X5M, X6M, and you hear a nice, especially when you get into some throttle and boost, it's guaranteed it's one of these. And I'm noticing that it's more on the driver's side, at least for this car. There were more cracks. This one in the middle is also very prone to crack. That one was a super easy change. It's right there, accessible. This one, still wrapping my head around it. I actually bought the ones for both sides. Part numbers 992, 989. Man, this engine was standing outside for hours, still super warm. Anyway, what I realize is the one on this side, you see that one with the cool shielding? It's pretty sensibly positioned down there and reachable. This one, I was yanking on the pieces and it just goes down into that crevice, kind of as you see in the middle of your screen right now. And I'm just trying to figure out, how am I gonna pull it out of there? Here's a little bit more proof of concern on the whole leaky PCVs and oil seepage trickling down into your engine hot V, where there's a V trough beneath those turbos. Look at this. I took off the boot, and so I'm looking down in there, and there's Same old seepage going that way and this way, you know? Not great. Man, this has been taking so long, I even took a dinner break. So, I'll show you what I've been doing. It's hard to see with the camera, but in there, okay, there we go. So you can see, here's the plug in question. Wow. Okay, so we're trying to get that off, and I'm able to slide this long screwdriver right up to the edges of it. And luckily the new plug is more simplistic on the way it grabs on. This probably makes life easier, or it's just an alternate plug. But you can see the one that's on there right now is probably something like this style, where it has these two sides with teeth and then this ring, and I'm trying to break this ring off because I don't have enough wiggle room in there to stick my fingers in and squish this to release the grasp. But I at least want to break up these sides so I can just take the whole thing off. I don't care if the little pieces fall on the ground, but I need to free up that nipple to put on the new piece. And yeah, I can almost tell someone has replaced this one on this side because it looks very fresh, and the piece is this one. So it runs down, and then the connector is just like this. Pretty healthy, pretty new. This one, I'm sure someone tried and gave up and said, no, thank you. And here we are with you today, replacing the driver's side crankcase breather line. My friends, it is finally free down there. I, of course, do not have the piece in my possession because it fell down. Let me see if I can focus this camera for you. Please focus. You know? Anyway, you can see right there, very blurred, that we now have our opening onto which the new hose will sit. When I do my oil change next time and I pull off the oil pan, I'm going to find that piece, of course, and retrieve it. Something is becoming quickly apparent. The OEM one had a slight bend at this bottom piece that goes in there. And so the OEM one, it went down through here, nice and flush to the engine. But because that one is going to need a bit of a bend, but it's still long enough, I'm going to run it kind of on the outside, because down there it's a tight bend to the left, and if I do it flush by the engine, that hose is probably going to, even if I can get it on there with that straight piece, it's going to prematurely wear and crack again. So it's plenty long for me to run it from there and still make it to this connector. But yeah, it's just a little bit of fiddling with it. Something that I've noticed is I got to roll up this little sleeve piece so I can get a good grasp on it down there, because it's really tight, and I just got to slide this on there. Maybe I'll even lube up this O-ring so I can just got to hear that little. Changing this hose will make you want to sell your car. BMW, what are you guys doing? I would not want to be a BMW mechanic, to be honest. You probably need to, you come into the service, they're like, oh yeah, that hose? You got to drop the engine, that's $2K. $20 part. Pay up, buddy. Anyway, I had to flip the hose around and actually use the bent end because it was impossible to try and fit on the straight edge. But good thing they're interchangeable, so the straight edge worked fine right here. And trust me, it was a pain. A pain to get the piece on there. Like, I've bled a couple times, and if that piece pops off, I don't know. Technically, this is an OEM part, not sold by BMW, but if it pops off, I'm gonna just look up the actual OEM part from BMW and make sure it's the same type of connectors. And then we might have to do this again, but I don't know. It sits on there like semi-snug, but I didn't hear like a full-blown click, and it's impossible to get your fingers in there to click it on there. Like, all I can do is get a screwdriver in there, but how are you gonna get that leverage to click that on? Let me know in the comments if you've done this before on your X5M or X7M. if you've tortured yourself in such a way. Anyway, it's all coming back together. I pulled off this boot just to inspect for oil leaks as well. Everything looks good. We're gonna put everything back together and start it and see if it sounds whistly funky. I'm tired. Good luck. Good luck to you. One of my eyes is just like, what a happy Wednesday I'm having. That's right. 50K miles. Hoses start popping. This ain't no Toyota for you, friends. So yeah, fitting back the boot. Previously that was facing downward. I don't know how the people installed that, but I had a great time trying to loosen that from down here with any size of screwdriver, because look at the angle. But anyway, the boot only goes on one way. There's like a little keyway on the bottom that you click it in, or the rubber piece of the boot comes in. And so everything fits pretty good. This fits up fine. There's no major like rubbing or anything. So again, I'll keep an eye on the piece down there. I pushed it in as hard as I could. I hope it doesn't come out, or else, you know, I'm just gonna have to figure out another PCV hose or whatever you want to call it to put in there. But okay, I'm gonna do the other boot, slap on the intake, and might go for a quick spin to see if it works. For anyone interested, here's what's left of the previous piece, and then part of it's down in there somewhere. Yeah. Whatever that is. Okay, let's put on the airbox and go for a rip. The airbox is a pretty cool design. I've not seen many others like this. It's I guess because of space, they didn't run individual little tracks. They just designed like a full airbox that just sits on the top here, like so. And it gets a lot of air through the kidneys in the front at the top. And then as long as these seat nicely on there. Those direct injectors are pretty noisy. It's like a sewing machine. Let's go for a drive. So I thought I was recording a minute ago, and unfortunately I got into some throttle and boost, and that hose popped off. Kind of like I suspected, because I didn't hear a firm click with the install of it. Super frustrating if you ask me, honestly. They could have designed that in a better location, better way, with better access. But you know, when BMW designs stuff, they're not thinking about the guy changing the parts 50K miles down the road. I can show you what it sounds like. Once we get on a straight here, I'll throw it in third gear and I'll accelerate, and you'll hear a nice vacuum cleaner. Oh yeah. And I got the engine malfunction light, which is the first time in this car. Fun stuff. But here, I'll try to simulate it anyway. You ready? Oh, it won't even let me rev. Put me in a limp mode. Good on you, BMW. I wanted to show you a quick example of a true OEM breather hose from the driver's side, bank 2. And so they look very similar, but I'm sure the OEM one is just more expensive than Amazon and you have to wait longer to get it. This is the one I actually bought on eBay. Here's a visual diagram that I found online, pretty useful for what we're actually working with and where we're trying to reach to install this driver's side positive crank pressure hose. My friends, we are back the next day because guess what? I got a check engine because the fitting way down there, the most difficult to reach fitting that causes bruises to your hands, like my wrist is bruised, it popped off while I was driving, and I'm like, what is wrong with it? This is supposed to be an OEM part. I actually went and ordered an OEM BMW part yesterday, but I realized something. When you look at the nipple on the intake manifold, it has on the rim some smooth parts and some parts of it are ribbed for particularly this type of whatever connecting ring for the device. And so what I realize is you have to clock it. If you clock it in the wrong way, it pops off because it's not grabbing with these little teeth on the ribbed part. I don't know why BMW would do that in the most difficult to see and reach place. Because look over here. These over here are ribbed everywhere. Like the one I put in on the top, it's a rib all the way around. Like seriously. I don't know what is up with the Germans. Cool tech, but it's like, let's torture people in the future, right? It's designed future maintenance torture. Anyway, I popped it back in. I gave it a nice little tug. I hope it stays in there. All right, we've let this thing thoroughly warm up. Bing! Very important with your S63 engine. I think what I hear a lot is, you know, warm up your car. People will tell you, oh, modern engines, you don't need to warm them up. Well, that's probably when you blow up your S63 with time. You know, there's a lot of oil that needs to go everywhere, and you want everything to be nice and hot and lubed, especially when we're going to be getting into some boost to see if this hose pops off or not. Please don't. I'll catch you on the open. And what we want to do here is probably drive around a good 5 minutes. We're going to romp on it a little bit, a good bit. So far so good. I'm trying not to go too far from the house because yesterday I drove a few minutes away, and when it popped off, the, you know, limp mode came on because you're pretty much getting a huge leak into the we're also going to put in the sporty M mode. Let's keep an ear out for what she does now. So far, so good. I've not heard the hose come off, but I'll definitely park it back in the garage, wait for the car to cool down, and I'll go poke at it, pull on it a little bit, see if it has any possibility of coming off.